zit we? Kijk, zit ze weer?
Get up here. Come here. Come on. Today's video is like no other video that ever came out of Open Air Outdoors. Those of you who follow me on Instagram and have seen my community posts, you're aware that my wife and I, we lost Misty. We suffered the loss of Misty. Misty and Lexi has been quite an integral part of Open Air Outdoors. And it's only fair that I make this video, which is remembering and honoring Misty. Misty was there the first time I pushed record. And in an ironic twist, Misty will forever be part of Open Air Outdoors. Before I get too far into this video, I'd like to give special thanks to all of you who left such fantastic messages giving us your condolences on the loss of Misty. The community really comes together in times like this, and this is why I love YouTube and doing YouTube, is I get to connect with all of you, and it was greatly appreciated. Let's remember Misty and the effects and the impact she had on my life and my wife's and so many other people out there. And before I get too involved in today's video, I'd like to read you a quote that was left to me. It goes like this: "Until one has loved an animal, a part of one's soul remains unawakened." Anatoly, France. Thanks, Craig. Really appreciate it. Turning the clock back to 2009, after the loss of my yellow lab buddy, it became clear to my wife and I. Our home had now become just a house. It was dull and it was lifeless. The decision was made for me to go look for a new furry friend. This is what I came up with. A few weeks later, I brought home the most beautiful puppy I had ever seen. She had oversized paws, giant ears that were softer than silk, black as night. She was an instant hit. We called her Misty. Growing too fast, Misty was adorable in every way. Quickly, Misty secured her position as the family pet, always looking for attention and cuddles on the couch. Misty never missed out on any event. But then came camp life. Learning how to swim, long days out on the water fishing, and just plain hanging out, being a puppy. Back at camp, Misty would steal the show. Camp life is superseded by hunting season. And Misty would run trails till she wore herself out. She just loved being out there, chasing anything that moves in the woods. At 1 year old, Misty went out on her first big game hunt. I'd like to share a little story about Misty's first big game hunt. A 1 year old puppy, I'm sitting in the bush, leaned up against a birch tree. Deer season, Misty by my side. And Misty was such a good girl. She listened so well. But then this day, she was restless. And she kept throwing these little woof. Not an actual bark, just a low-key woof. She was fidgety, she wouldn't stay still. I kept swatting at her to be still and just to sit there. I was blowing it off that I had myself a puppy with energy to burn. But then suddenly, after some time of this going on and I was getting frustrated, out of nowhere, quite literally, a 1,000-pound moose came barreling out of the bushes and ran right towards us. This dumb cow moose ran past us and practically stampeded us. It ran off perhaps 20 yards past us, stopped, turned around, and stared back at the direction she came from, unaffected by our presence. After a few minutes, that cow again ran right past us. I could have touched it as it went by. Back into the forest it went, and it disappeared. Throughout this whole episode, Misty stayed by my side. She never ran off. She never got excited. She never so much as barked. She just sat there and observed everything with me. I knew right then and there I had me a hunting dog. Misty continued to impress on the hunts. Anytime you're on watch, Misty was on high alert, and those big ears would pick out game moving hundreds of yards away beyond the tree line. But then something happened. Misty suddenly discovered her love, her true passion: bird hunting. Misty was a trail rocket. Before long, every outing was met with complete success with Misty at the helm. If you're still with me at this point of the video, you are a dog lover, or at least an animal and pet lover, and I appreciate you. And I'd like to share with you another story about Misty. And this story I really like because it gives a true picture of her temperament and the effect she had on people. Some years ago, my father fell ill, and he was terminally ill, and he spent the last weeks of his life in a hospice. If you're not familiar, a hospice is a place where you go to die. When you're no longer receiving treatment for your illness, the medical staff in a hospice, their job is to make you as comfortable as they possibly can till you live out your days. My daily routine when my father was in a hospice was I would leave home first thing in the morning, bright and early, and I would go visit with him. I would spend a couple of hours visiting with him and spending time with him, and then I'd go off on my work day. After work, I'd hurry home, grab Misty, and bring her back to the hospice to see my dad. Of course, as you can imagine, Misty was the highlight of his day. But then something happened. Other residents at the hospice, they would see me walk past their room in the hallway with Misty, and they would motion to the nurses and PSWs on duty if they could talk to me and see if I could bring Misty over to see them. Of course, I obliged. But it very quickly became a tradition. After I was done visiting with my father, I would take Misty and I would knock on doors. And to see these people laying in their beds, and when I'd catch their attention and they'd see Misty, their face would just light up. I'd unleash Misty. She would run to their bedside and jump up with both paws on the edge of their bed, full of licks while they were petting her and ruffling up her big floppy ears. It's quite the humbling experience to see a face light up. There was a nurse that worked there at the hospice. She approached me 2, maybe 3 times, and she really pushed hard for me to have Misty certified by the St. John Ambulance to be a therapy dog. She just had that personality that was perfectly suited for such a thing. Of course, I was not opposed to it, But unfortunately, at the time, I was facing my own demons, and I just simply could not commit in good conscience. But you know, Misty was not the perfect dog. Behind that sweet face and those loving eyes, Misty had a dark side. Misty secretly was a bully and a thug. Misty would steal my bed everywhere I went. Misty stole my bed. She was not happy until she was stealing my bed.
That's not your bed, Misty. That's not your bed.
Even at deer camp, nobody's sleeping bag was ever safe from the Misty. She would attack me when I least expected it. Misty would stare me down until I gave her my food. And there was an unspoken rule with Misty. If you ever went through a Tim Hortons drive-thru, you had to get Misty a Timbit. Despite all this, Misty never slept outside unless I was sleeping outside with her. She was my fishing buddy. She was my hunting partner. She was my camping companion. But most of all, Misty was my canoe dog. And she was the perfect canoe dog. On the Portage Trail, Misty would lead the way. You lead the way, Misty. Yeah, you lead the way. She would make sure that I was never too far behind. Misty would not jump in or out of the canoe until she was told to. Always calm, Misty was not bothered by sudden movement in the canoe. She would never jump out at any ducks or wildlife that we encountered. She would keep her cool in high wind conditions and heavy waves. Misty was quite content just laying there in the canoe and chilling. She was so happy to be out there with me. In late summer of 2022, I kind of had that gut feeling that the upcoming hunt may be Misty's last one. Just had that feeling. So I really pushed and I really tried to give Misty a good hunting season. And I did so. I brought her out as much as I possibly could. I was in awe at watching Misty, a 13-year-old dog, turn into a puppy, chasing around those birds in the woods, just seeking them out. She'd find them on the trail and chase them down. She would show me exactly what tree they flew up in. But then after the shot, that was the best. To see her carry that bird out in her mouth with her head up high, so proud of herself. She just loved it. I'm very proud and very fortunate that I was able to give that to her one last time, her true passion of bird hunting. But then later that season, looking for big game, and at the same time I was working on some YouTube material. While I was busy putting stuff together for YouTube, I turned and I saw Misty just laying there on the forest floor. I don't know why, but I was compelled to just turn the camera on her and letting it roll. Little did I know, Misty had cancer. 53 days later, Misty would die peacefully in my arms after taking a treat from my wife's fingers. I miss you, big girl. I really miss you.